Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight and Wight Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday, the 20th of June 2025. So today we're at the festival. We have been so lucky to be given a stand again this year. We're in Penny Lane along with a few other charities, and this year we're running a blind fruit machine. So some of our volunteers and staff got together and actually physically made the fruit machine, which 3 people sit inside and show fruit. If you get 2 matching fruits, you win a prize. And if you get 3 matching fruits, wait for it, you win a pair of Sight for Wight sunglasses. The weekend is set to be so beautiful and sunny, so if anybody is at the festival, don't hesitate to come down and say hello to us. The event is not only about fundraising, it's also about awareness raising. So if you are around, please do pop down. Thank you. Lisa, CEO, Sight for Wight and Wight Sense.
Here is this week's charity news, 20th June 2025. Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15 p.m. and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
Yoga is on Tuesday at Millbrook House. This group is now full, but if you wish to put your name down on the waiting list, please call the office.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment. On Wednesday, we have Lisa from Green Isle of Wight coming in to offer a free cooking session for air fryers. We have 1 space left. If this is something you would be interested in, please call the office and speak to Susan. Due to the cookery course, our planned catch-up and feedback has been postponed by 1 week. And now it will be held on the Wednesday, the 2nd of July at 11 a.m. during coffee and chat.
On Friday, our monthly Striders will be walking around Nettlestone. This walk is around 6 miles, followed by lunch at the pub. If you would like to join us, please call the office for more details.
Now the warmer and hopefully sunnier weather is coming, our tandem bikes are now out and about. If you would like to book a session, please call the office and a slot can be booked with the pilots.
This weekend, we will be attending the Isle of Wight Festival in Newport. If you or a family member is attending, please ask them to pop along to our stand and have a go on our new exciting game, the Human Fruit Machine. We are trialling at the festival. We thank all our wonderful volunteers who once again offer their time to man the stall for the duration. Without them, we would not be able to attend these events and raise vital funds for the charity.
Another activity on the sea is a trip on wet wheels. This chartered boat will take members out onto the Solent for a 90-minute trip. The dates are the 11th of August and the 1st of September. The cost is £8 per person. But once again, numbers are limited. So a ballot will have to be held if oversubscribed. Please call the office if you're interested.
Save the date, July the 30th, our day of celebration here at Millbrook House. This is open to all members, volunteers and supporters of the charity to come together and celebrate the work we do for the Isle of Wight. More details to follow shortly.
Our monthly 100 club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it is £2 per month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities.
If you sometimes wish you had a friend to talk to and feel isolated from the outside world, our telephone befrienders are on hand to call you for a friendly chat. The calls can be weekly, fortnightly or monthly and can be tailored around your needs. If you would like to receive a telephone call, please call the office and we will match you with a befriender.
Calls for public service obligation as debate panel slam ferry pricing and reliability from the Island Echo, read by Joyce. Local MPs, business leaders and community figures condemned the soaring costs, unreliability and lack of accountability of the Isle of Wight's ferry services during the Island Echo Isle of Wight Observer State of the Island debate. The ferry companies faced a barrage of united cross-party criticism during Friday's event, with calls now mounting for a public service obligation to finally bring change. The question posed to the panel was, should the ferry companies be subject to a public service obligation, and if so, why? Richard Quigley, MP, Labour, Isle of Wight West, claimed that he and his fellow Isle of Wight East MP spent most of their time on this issue. He added that this was the first time the question had been brought up with the Department of Transport and that he was starting from scratch. He revealed that he had illustrated the difficulties for islanders by placing a map of the Isle of Wight over a map of Swindon, the constituency of Transport Minister Heidi Alexander, for her benefit, and explaining that every time you wanted to go outside that map, you had to pay up to £300. Richard said, "What we need is reliable, frequent, low-cost ferries. If that means a public service obligation, then I'm 100% behind it. If it's a change in the finance structure, then I'm 100% behind it. If it's regulation, I'm 100% behind it. I can guarantee you neither of us will sleep until this problem is sorted." Joe Robertson, Conservative, Isle of Wight East, claimed he had surprised his chief whip by exclaiming "Hear, hear" to Richard Quigley's points on the ferries from the opposition benches in the House of Commons. He said it was in everyone's interest that both MPs pulled together on the subject of what he saw as the Isle of Wight's biggest issue. Joe added, "What we don't want is high prices, dynamic spike pricing on car ferries, reduction in timetables, unreliable ferries, ferry companies that don't invest in their ferry fleets, and paying large amounts of money to private equity companies. What's not normal is how cross-solent transport is provided. I've got nothing against Canadian pensioners, but Isle of Wight ferry users should not be paying their pensions." Laura Baxter, head of marketing Black Gang Chine, revealed that while it was possible to come to a Park Dean resort for just £70, when she wanted to get off the island to say her goodbyes to her nan, it had cost her £150 for the privilege. She claimed that dynamic pricing in the summer was absolutely crazy and that tourists were only aware of the headline prices and weren't necessarily aware that they could get discounted prices by shopping around. Laura Baxter, Joe Smythe, Chief Officer, Isle of Wight NHS Trust, claimed that ferry prices had a big impact on the hospitals and healthcare of the island. He explained, "I can't tell you the number of times I've sat in an interview with consultants who pull out when they realise the cost of getting here. If we had a service that was affordable, it would allow us to bring in the inward investment that we want and fix the age demographic problem that we have, because it would create jobs for our young people. If we don't do that, the situation on the island is only going to deteriorate until the point when the government is forced to step in. If we don't sort out the ferry problem, I can't see a bright future for us." Joe Smythe, Sir Paul Kenny, former General Secretary GMB, told the audience of a situation in which a woman had been quoted £512 to come across with a car and passenger, asking who in their right mind would come. He added that dynamic pricing meant ferry operators charging whatever they can, depending on how easy it was to mug a customer. Paul said the accountability of these ferry companies is zero. You can write as many complaints as you like. Reliability, you get more out of a chocolate fireguard. We're not going to sit quiet. We're not going to give up. We're not going to go away. We owe it to the island to make them accountable. I'd like to go further. I'd like to see the ferries back under democratic control. Phil Jordan, leader, Isle of Wight Council, gave enormous credit to both MPs for their work on the ferries issue. Phil continued, "Dynamic pricing has to change. The service levels have to go up and the prices have to come down. We have to have better services at better prices for islanders. But this is not a sprint. This is a marathon to move these ferry companies." Stephen Holbrook, CEO of Isle of Wight Chamber, rounded off the discussion by stating that so long as the business model stays as it is, nothing would change. He didn't think there would be a change unless there was a change in government policy. However, he was encouraged that conversations were happening for the first time.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo with the headline, "Cows to welcome finish of historic 3,000-mile transatlantic race." The 32nd edition of the transatlantic race will chart a 3,000-mile course from Newport, Rhode Island to Cowes here on the Isle of Wight, celebrating over 150 years of racing tradition. Organised by the New York Yacht Club and the Royal Ocean Racing Club, supported by the Royal Yacht Squadron in Cowes as well as the Storm Trysail Club, Transatlantic Race 2025, from the east coast of the United States to the shores of the United Kingdom, stands as one of sailing's most time-honoured and demanding challenges. Taking the west to east route tests sailors with the unpredictability of the North Atlantic. Origins of this contest trace back to the 19th century, when the age of steam had not yet replaced sail. In 1866, the American owners of 3 yachts, the Henrietta, Fleetwing and Vesta, made a now legendary wager of $30,000 each and raced from New York to the Isle of Wight in the Great Ocean Race, with the winner taking the entire purse. This daring midwinter adventure, an extraordinary feat of ambition, technology and endurance, was won by Henrietta in an elapsed time of 13 days, 21 hours and 55 minutes. Henrietta was helmed by James Golden Bennett Jr., who was to become the Commodore of the New York Yacht Club in 1870. This was the first truly publicised transatlantic yacht race and arguably the moment ocean racing was born. Continuing the tradition into the 20th century, the transatlantic race was organised every few years. Yachts that have become legends in their own right have raced this route, from Windward Passage and Condor of Bermuda to more recent high-tech campaigns like ICAP Leopard, Rambler 100 and Comanche. Not just a contest of speed, the race has long drawn those seeking personal conquest. From seasoned offshore veterans to families sailing for legacy, experience and connection to the sea. This Transatlantic Race 2025 carries forward more than 150 years of heritage. The race started from Newport, Rhode Island on Wednesday and will finish in Cowes. Depending on weather conditions and other factors, it will take between 1 and 3 weeks to complete for the first boat across the line. It will be scored under IRC, and the competitors will cover a distance of approximately 3,000 miles. This 2025 edition will be the 32nd transatlantic sailing competition organised by the New York Yacht Club, with the race being sponsored by Peters and May.
This is Den reading an article from the Island Echo. University develops AI app to help identify donkeys at the Isle of Wight Sanctuary. Artificial intelligence experts at the University of Southampton are working with the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary to develop machine learning for donkey identification. The technology will enable visitors to the sanctuary to use an app to identify individual donkeys, and for supporters who have adopted a donkey to spot their donkey in the herd. The AI system also has the potential in the future to help identify health issues in donkeys. As famously stoic animals, it can be difficult to recognise when they are unwell. It is hoped that the app could alert staff at an early age when a donkey is holding itself uncomfortably or unnaturally. The app is named Ask Elvis, which stands for Equine Long Range Visual Identification System. The name also honours one of the sanctuary's first donkeys, Elvis, who passed away in 2024, aged approximately 35 years. Explaining the challenge of donkey identification, Gordon Patterson, trustee of the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary, which is home to 106 donkeys, explains the challenges. The donkeys used to wear collars with their names on, but they weren't safe or comfortable for them. Many donkeys don't have distinguishing features, and they live in herds in our fields, so identifying individual donkeys can be challenging. Dr. Zhao Hao Kei, Assistant Professor of Computer Science at the University of Southampton, is developing the app along with PhD student Fensheng Fang and Master's student Yu Cheng Lai. Dr. Kai has said the app will use AI technology to automatically identify individual donkeys. The AI recognition will identify individual donkeys from all angles, their faces as well as from the side or behind. A preliminary version of the app, featuring the algorithm that will be at the core of the final product, is complete. It contains a library of hundreds of images of the donkeys from all angles and uses deep learning technologies to inform its decisions on which donkey it is identifying. The project team is aiming to release the app for mobile phones at the end of 2025. Dr. Kai adds, "It's a really exciting project. It's great to be working on something that's beyond our own research and to be able to help such a fantastic charity as the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary." Stephen Torbett, General Manager at the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary, says, "We're absolutely delighted to be working with the University of Southampton on this project, which promises to revolutionise our visitor experience."
Isle of Wight Tomatoes takes centre stage on menu at Jeremy Clarkson's pub. From the Island Echo, read by Joyce. Isle of Wight grown tomatoes are taking a starring role on the menu at Jeremy Clarkson's new Cotswold pub, The Farmer's Dog, which is built around a strict British-only sourcing policy. Clarkson's pub, located in Chadlington and featured in the hit Amazon series Clarkson's Farm, only serves food and drink made using products entirely sourced from the UK. This week, that includes an Isle of Wight tomato salad priced at £12, which features tomatoes grown in Arraton alongside watercress, pickled onion, and a garden dressing. The dish is served as part of the pub's lunch menu. The use of Isle of Wight produce on the menu highlights the quality and reputation of locally grown ingredients, placing the island's farming in the national spotlight. Clarkson's latest venture has gained attention not just for its sourcing rules, which exclude staples like ketchup and Coca-Cola due to their overseas ingredients, but also for its premium pricing. Despite the costs, including pies priced at £24, Clarkson has said the business often runs at a loss per customer, but insists on sticking to his British-only ethos. Jeremy Clarkson has previously spoken about the challenges of sticking to British-sourced ingredients, noting the high cost and limited availability of items like black pepper and tonic water. However, the Isle of Wight tomato remains firmly in season and on the plate.
Hi, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio with the headline, Your Voice Matters. Help shape future of Island Health Watch services. Islanders are being encouraged to take part in a new survey which will help shape how Health Watch services are provided on the Isle of Wight in the years ahead. The Isle of Wight Council is preparing to award a new contract for the delivery of this important statutory service, as the current arrangement is due to end on the 31st of December 2025. Before that happens, the Council wants to hear from local people about what they expect from their Health Watch service and how it should be delivered. What is Health Watch? Health Watch is the independent voice for people who use health and social care services. It listens to the experience of residents, shares that feedback with those in charge, and helps ensure services are meeting the needs of the community. From helping someone find the right support for a loved one, to advising on how to make a complaint, or simply passing on praise for a job well done, Health Watch plays a vital role in making sure local services work for the people who use them. It also provides clear, accessible information and advice to help residents understand their options and make informed decisions about their care. In some cases, Health Watch can even recommend that national bodies such as the Care Quality Commission, that's the CQC, carry out formal reviews or investigations. Why your views matter. The Council is keen to ensure that the next Health Watch contract reflects the needs and priorities of the island's diverse communities. To do that, they need to hear directly from the people who live there. We hope to get a clear picture of what the public expect from their local Health Watch service, said Laura Godion, the Council's Strategic Director for Adult Social Care and Housing. This isn't just a tick box exercise. It's about listening to the people who use health and care services every day and making sure their voices shape how the next service is designed. Whether it's about how easy it is to get advice, how well feedback is acted upon, or how visible and approachable the service is in our communities, we want to hear it all. The more people who take part, the better we can ensure the new Health Watch provider truly reflects the needs and priorities of islanders. Whether you've used Health Watch before or not, your views are valuable. The survey asks about how you've heard of Health Watch, whether you've used its services, and how you'd prefer to engage with it in future. It also invites suggestions for improvement and gives you the chance to share your own experiences. How to take part. The survey is available online via the Council's website, and paper copies can be picked up at libraries across the island. The closing date for comments is the 11th of August 2025. It only takes a few minutes to complete, and all responses will be treated in confidence.
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Local air ambulance takes off for flight number 14,000. The doctors, dispatchers, pilots and paramedics that make up the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance critical care teams have responded to 14,000 missions by helicopter since its first flight in 2007. Combined with its emergency response vehicle deployments, the service has responded to more than 21,000 emergencies in total. Flight number 14,000 came up when the team were deployed to an incident in Milford-on-Sea on Tuesday the 10th of June. The service's helicopter was dispatched from Queen Alexandra Hospital, Portsmouth, after completing an earlier mission. A patient was stabilised at the scene, then transferred to hospital by road ambulance, with the doctor-paramedic team continuing to provide life-saving care with ambulance staff colleagues from South Central Ambulance Service. One of those 14,000 responses was to 61-year-old Charlie Joyner, who was flown to hospital in 2024 after his leg was crushed under the weight of a van engine. Charlie from Wootton had a near amputation of his right foot, an open fracture to his left ankle, and he had also snapped his fibula. Because of his rural location in Merestone, the pilot landed the helicopter close to the scene, saving vital minutes. Charlie was stabilised before being flown to hospital for surgery. Charlie said, "Without the air ambulance, I would probably have died, and I definitely would have lost my leg. I'd like to say a massive thank you. Thank you to the team who came out, to me and to the people who support the air ambulance. It's so important to everyone in our community, especially to us here on the Isle of Wight. I never thought it would be me who needed it." Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance paramedic clinical lead Nick Gray, who was on flight number 14,000, said, "Our sincere thanks to everyone who supports this charity. Your kindness and passion ensures my colleagues and I are ready to provide emergency critical care to those who need it. Many of our patients and their friends and families are only together now because of the exceptional generosity of the people who have supported us since our first flight in 2007. The charity relies entirely on donations from the public to ensure it can bring its life-saving care to the most seriously ill and injured patients across the region. The service has responded to more than 1,000 emergencies in 2025. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance is currently raising funds towards its airbase relocation appeal, Operation Airbase. The move to a site near Southampton Airport will improve response times for patients throughout Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. The charity has so far raised 1.5 million of its 3.6 million target.
Good morning, I'm Val Rutherford-Jackson, about to read the County Press News.
Good morning, my name is Gerard Anthony.
The first story: a man smashed up a neighbour's CCTV camera. A man smashed up his neighbour's CCTV camera with a piece of wood because he felt it was invading his privacy. Joseph Gulliver, now of Culver Parade, Sundown, appeared before the Isle of Wight magistrates. The 42-year-old admitted criminal damage in Ryde on January the 13th. Prosecutor Lauren McConnell said in the early hours of the morning, Gulliver damaged a camera facing his neighbour's front door and garden. She said he was seen on CCTV at around 5:45 a.m. hitting the device with a piece of wood. Damage to the value of £140 was caused to both the camera and the wall it was attached to. Michael McGoldrick, defending, said Gulliver was in receipt of state benefits, unable to work for physical and mental health reasons. He said the camera operated on a motion sensor and would move and follow him any time he left his property. The court heard Gulliver felt it was an invasion of his privacy, and on the spur of the moment he decided to cause the damage. Gulliver, who has 20 previous convictions for 39 offences, must pay a £40 fine, £140 compensation, £85 costs and a £16 surcharge.
Woman in 70s dies in bus collision tragedy. A woman in her 70s died following a serious crash between a car and a bus in Shanklin on Monday. Emergency services, including Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary, and the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service, were called to reports of a collision on Church Road at 6:09 p.m. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance also attended, landing at Bigmead Park. A large portion of the park was taped off as a result. The crash near Upper Chine Holiday Cottages involved a number 3 double-decker bus travelling from Ventnor to Shanklin and a Fiat Panda. There were multiple emergency services on the scene. With a large stretch of road between St. Blasius Church, car park and pond, and the junction with Priory Road closed. Police said the driver of the Fiat, a woman in her 70s, was seriously injured in the collision. Despite the best efforts of emergency services, she died at the scene. Following the crash, police launched an appeal for witnesses. Inspector Andy Tester said, "As part of our investigation, we would like to speak to anyone who witnessed the collision or anyone who has relevant dash cam footage capturing the incident or the moments leading up to it. If you can help, please get in touch with us at the earliest opportunity." He added, "If you have any information, please call 101, quoting reference 442-5026-4668. In a statement released by Susan Vectis, Simons Moy, operations manager, confirmed there were no reported injuries to our driver or the passengers on board our vehicle. The front of the double-decker bus did sustain damage. However, as there was not much damage shown. The road reopened the following morning. In the days that followed the collision, flowers were laid at the scene in tribute.
Blind veteran steps out in a 102-kilometre walk for charity. A blind veteran is organising a second blindfolded fundraising walk to support others living with sight loss. Ian Summers, 45, from Shanklin, is taking on the challenge in support of Blind Veterans UK, the national charity for vision-impaired ex-servicemen and women. He has named the event the Ultra Blindfolded Bimble, which will take place on June the 29th as part of the charity's Armed Forces Month campaign. Ian said, "Last autumn, I joined a group of blind veterans to take on the South Coast Ultra. We walked a range of a distance from 25 kilometres to 100 kilometres. This has inspired me to go bigger with this year's Bimble. He joined the army in 2002 at the age of 22 and served with the 2nd Battalion Princess of Wales Royal Regiment, completing tours in Iraq, Kuwait and Northern Ireland. For the 2nd year in a row, he is inviting walkers to pair up and take turns walking blindfolded while guided by a partner along the coastal path between Shanklin and Sandown. Last year, participants walked 3 kilometres each under blindfold. This year, Ian aims to collectively cover 102 kilometres, the distance from Shanklin to the Blind Veterans UK Rustington Centre in West Sussex and back. He wants the walk to raise awareness about the personal impact of sight loss and the vital work of Blind Veterans UK. Ian lost his sight suddenly in 2017 and began receiving support from the charity in 2018. He said, "My life changed overnight, but discovering Blind Veterans UK turned things around. They helped me learn to use a cane so that I could walk safely unaided, provided equipment like a talking microwave to help me prepare food, and enable me to meet and spend time with other blind veterans, which helped me to imagine a life for myself beyond sight loss." He is encouraging others to take part in the Ultra Blindfolded Bimble on June the 29th or to organise their own event. To donate, visit justgiving.com/page/ultrablind-folded Bimble. Blind Veterans UK supports thousands of blind veterans across the country and encourages anyone who served in the armed forces and is now living with sight loss to get in touch.
Marked increase in crime rates. The Isle of Wight recorded a total of 1,075 reported crimes in April 2025, marking an increase from 980 incidents in March, according to the latest data released by police. Leading the Hampshire and Isle of Wight constabulary crime statistics were violence and sexual offences, which accounted for 491 incidents, just over 45%. This number is slightly down from 501 in March, but is still the most frequently reported crime on the island. This was followed by public order offences, 120 incidents, antisocial behavior, 108 incidents, and shoplifting, 90 incidents. Other notable categories included criminal damage and arson, 75 incidents, theft, 61 incidents, drug offences, 33, burglary, 25, and vehicle crime, 19. A category listed as other crimes saw a total of 24. Newport remains the island's top hotspot for crime, with 251 reported incidents in April. Ryde followed closely behind, with 242 incidents. Here is where the majority of the crimes were reported during April. Newport, 251. Ryde, 242. Sandown, 111. Shanklin, 86. Ventnor and Lowtherville, 60. Cowes, 53. East Cowes and Osborne, 50. Freshwater, 33. Wootton, 19. Binstead, 17. Bembridge, 16. Gunville, 13. Brading, 12. Rookley, 9. Totland, 8. Brightstone, 8. Yarmouth, 7. Wroxall, 5. Thorness, 5. Winford, 5.
Podium finish for Isle of Wight cycling team. The White Link CRT team claimed a podium finish at the RCR Facts Creations Goodwood Races 4UP TTT in Chichester. The mixed category team, comprising of Nick Early, Jack Grundy, Charis Jones and Richard Nembard, secured the third place. They completed 10 laps, equivalent to 29 miles, in a time of 52 minutes 38. The A team, consisting of Kev Grant, Ewan Cook, Henry Farrell and Ollie Nolan, were seeded 21st out of 45 teams. They finished in a remarkable time of 42.55, achieving an average speed of almost 30 miles an hour to take 8th place overall. Team manager Jerry Cooper said, "What a fantastic night of racing. The teams pulled out great results despite having little time to practice together before the race, and getting on the podium in the mixed event was the icing on the cake." Junior rider Mackenzie Cook also took part in the Southern Enduro at Pippingford. With his studies taking priority, Mackenzie's training had been limited. He finished 19th.
Warning that islanders are facing an additional tax. Ferry operators are calling on government to make them exempt from a so-called carbon credit amid a warning it could lead to an additional tax on islanders. Whitelink estimates legislation, part of the UK emissions trading scheme, could cost the company an extra £1 million a year. Essentially, for every ton of carbon you emit, you end up paying a carbon credit. Katie Taylor, Whitelink CEO, explained, describing it as a real risk to the island. She added, "We are lobbying quite hard to make sure the island is exempt, because otherwise that's going to be an additional tax on people who live on the island." The scheme would also affect Red Funnel, and the firm told the county press it will continue to work collaboratively to ensure the island is not penalized. Fran Collins, CEO, said, "We have been engaging with the government consultations since they began to ensure that appropriate exemptions for lifeline services are included within the parameters of the UK emissions trading scheme. Both ferry firms say they are committed to decarbonizing and running all electric vessels, but argue it is currently not possible due to significant constraints with grid capacity. Ms. Collins said, "Major changes are needed to the UK's national power capabilities to enable us to move completely away from conventionally powered or hybrid vessels." Ms. Taylor, who revealed that Whitelink had wanted to make its proposed new car ferry all electric, but that it is not possible, added, "We really want to decarbonize. We just physically can't do it because of grid capacity." Somewhat ironically, Ms. Taylor said current legislation would also penalize Whitelink's hybrid flagship, Victoria White, currently the only part electric vehicle ferry on the Solent. We've done what we think is right by going hybrid, and we're going to end up paying this. Meanwhile, Red Funnel said its new Artemis foot passenger ferry, set to launch on the Red Jet route to Southampton, is an example of its commitment to decarbonize. Artemis Technologies, which built the new ferry, said it recognizes grid capacity is a major consideration and confirmed the vessel will be charged in Southampton, meaning there is no additional impact on grid connections on the island. The county press understands talks are going between ferry operators, government, the Isle of Wight Council, and the island's MPs about exemption from the scheme.
Mud challenge to support games trip. The Isle of Wight swim team is gearing up for the 2025 International Island Games in Orkney, and their manager has been crawling through ice and mud to help raise funds for it. Gavin Muncaster has been pushing his limits, completing the London Marathon in April and Europe's toughest mudder in May. But his biggest challenge yet lies ahead, the world's toughest mudder. This is a 24-hour obstacle course being held at Belvoir Castle in Leicestershire on June the 28th and 29th. The course punishes participants with ice-cold water, high-voltage obstacles and harsh terrain. Gavin's efforts are not just for personal achievement, but part of a fundraising drive to aid the swim team's journey to Orkney, covering their travel and competition expenses. The 9 young swimmers will also take on a sponsored swim of more than 19 kilometres, the combined ferry crossings from the Isle of Wight to Orkney. The team consists of Isabel, Will, Skye, George, Miley, Harry, Grace, Ben and Inara. Gavin said, "These young swimmers have shown incredible dedication, often training before school, evenings and across weekends. It's been a real privilege to be part of their journey. Competing at the Island Games is a huge achievement, and I'm proud to support them however I can, even if that means crawling through ice and mud for 24 hours. Both fundraising pages are on Just Giving."
Students win debating prize. A team of 4 students have won a debating competition. The Island Sixth Form team of Adam, Fraser, Olivia and Sebastian were crowned winners of the Island Schools debating competition last week. The event held at Newport Minster saw the team battle it out to win with their argument against deriving energy from fossil fuels. The judges, including Lord Lieutenant Susie Sheldon, the High Sheriff Jack Gazzard, and retired tribunal judge Tim O'Flynn, were impressed by the students' memory and communication skills. The students had to face tough opposition from other school teams, including Cowes, Christ the King, Priory School, Isle of Wight College, Ride Academy, and Ride School. Vic Lavzian, the Island Sixth Form teacher, said this was a real team effort. Most of the students attend our weekly talking shop club, where we discuss a variety of big issues facing the world. It was a welcome opportunity to meet so many other talented young speakers, and we are grateful to Justin Potter, Rob Torrington, and Newport Minster for organizing the competition. I am so very proud of our sixth form team.
Midsummer Fun of the Fair. The 63rd edition of the Shorewell Midsummer Fair was a resounding success on Saturday. For the third consecutive year, the traditional village fair was held in the grounds of Wolverton Manor in Shorewell. It is one of the last surviving original fairs on the island, and alongside attractions and stalls there was a tea tent, arena displays and live music. All proceeds from the event went to the local charities, community groups and organisations. The winner of the wheelbarrow race was Sam Russell of Shorewell. His prize was 25 kilos of potatoes from local producer John Knox Potatoes.
Fundraiser for biker in serious crash. A motorcyclist is facing the life-changing prospect of a leg amputation following a serious crash last week near Chesil Pottery. Harley Cottingham from Freshwater was seriously injured in a single vehicle collision on the B3399 near Brook Road and the Middle Road. Emergency services were called to the scene just before 10 p.m. after the black motorcycle he was riding left the carriageway. The 22-year-old was airlifted to Southampton's specialist trauma unit with multiple severe leg injuries. According to his partner's mother, who has launched a GoFundMe campaign to support the couple during his recovery, the rider suffered a shattered left leg and knee broken beyond surgical repair. Despite undergoing 2 extensive operations, one lasting 8 hours and another 6 hours, surgeons now believe amputation of Harley's left leg is unavoidable. In addition to the injury to his left leg, Harley also suffered a broken hip and a snapped femur on his right side, both of which will require further surgeries. The fundraiser has been set up to help cover Harley's rent, bills and travel costs for his partner, who commutes to Southampton daily to be with him. He has got a long road of rehabilitation and recovery, the fundraiser states. He can no longer work his full-time job he loves for the foreseeable future. He will be in hospital for at least 6 weeks, followed by emotional and physical recovery at home. The campaign, which has started to gather community support, aims to relieve some of the pressure on the couple during what has been described as an awful time in their lives at such a young age. Meanwhile, police are continuing to appeal for witness to the crash. A Hampshire and Isle of Wight constabulary spokesperson said, "We would like to speak to anyone who witnessed the collision or the motorcyclist in the moments leading up to it."
The rising costs spell the end for a high street landmark. An established branch of W. Hurst & Son is set to close this summer. It has been confirmed after being in business on the Isle of Wight for more than 60 years. The island company has announced the Ventnor hardware store will shut on August the 30th. Despite being a mainstay of Ventnor High Street since 1963, W. Hurst & Sons say the decision was made as part of a strategic adjustment which reflects the evolving retail landscape and current economic realities. The company announced only last month it was considering closing its Ventnor and Freshwater branches, while identifying the Shanklin branch as being at future risk of closure. The announcement was driven by challenges posed by the convenience of multinational online retailers, together with increased local competition from national brands over the past decade, explained Jevon Kennedy, the company's managing director. Rising operational costs influenced by recent UK budgetary measures have also made it difficult for the independent retail business to remain sustainable, he added. However, following a consultation period, the company decided last week the freshwater branch will remain open for now. There will be a thorough review in January, aligned to the implementation of further cost savings through adjustments to opening hours and staffing levels. The review period for the Shanklin branch, previously identified as being at risk of closure, has also been extended, with its status to also be reassessed in January. Despite suggestions from colleagues and the local community, the company said it was unable to identify a financial viable path to remain open in Ventnor. Mr. Kennedy added, the cost-saving measures applicable to the freshwater branch would not be sufficient at the Ventnor location. It is with deep sadness the economic pressures of 2025 have necessitated this difficult decision.
College principal to step down after 4 years. The principal of the Isle of Wight College has decided to step down after 4 years in the role. Ross Parker, who joined the college in 2022, will leave at the end of the 2026 academic year. Changes in Ross' personal circumstances are being cited as a main reason for her departure. Ross said, "It has been an absolute joy and privilege to be part of our students' journeys and to witness their growth and achievements, made possible by the unwavering dedication of our staff and the support of our wonderful community. However, due to changes in my personal circumstances, I now have been increasing caring responsibilities that require my attention. Regrettably, this means stepping away from a role and sector I care deeply about." Chair of Governors Sarah Witch said, "While we are saddened by Ross' decision to step down, we are deeply grateful for her exceptional leadership and steadfast commitment to our students, staff, and the wider community. Her vision and passion have left a lasting legacy, and we wish her every success in her future endeavors." While previously principal of Southend Community College, she was recognized in the Queen's New Year Honours list in 2021 for her significant contributions to adult education and community development.
Have your say on town dereliction. A new survey is giving residents a chance to voice their concerns about the growing problem of derelict buildings in Sandown. The survey, launched by Sandown Town Council, is part of ongoing efforts to understand how these sites are affecting the lives of residents, workers, and visitors to the town. Islanders who have not yet participated can still share their views, with the survey remaining open until July the 18th. The Town Council is also collaborating with the Bay School to capture the views of young people on the issue. Mayor Alex Lightfoot acknowledged the significant challenges posed by the town's dereliction problem, admitting that while efforts to tackle individual sites have been ongoing, the legal and financial resources available to the council are limited. We know Sandown has been significantly impacted by derelict, damaged and demolished buildings, he said. The survey can be found at www.sandowntownCouncil.gov.uk/the Sandown Dereliction Survey 2025, all in lowercase.
Parish councillor retires after years of service. A parish councillor has stepped down from her role after serving the community. Betty Young was thanked for her contributions to Lake Parish Council during its recent annual meeting, where councillors gathered to reflect on her impact and welcome new members. Paul Brading, chair of Lake Parish Council, said, "The council are sorry that Betty is retiring, as she helped establish the warm space in Lake, contributing to our COVID support projects, and was very much part of replacing public facilities at New Road and Lake Cliffs Gardens, as well as reopening slipway toilets." In a message of thanks, Betty said, "Thanks to Paul and the team. It has been a pleasure and privilege serving the residents of Lake, and I will continue to keep an interest in all the plans the council has." Councillor Brading presented Betty with a bouquet of flowers at her last meeting and concluded, "We are very grateful for all that Betty has given to Lake, and we will miss her guidance and her enthusiasm." Locals step up campaign to reopen paddling pool. A grassroots campaign to reopen a much-loved seafront paddling pool is gathering momentum. Local resident Charlotte Pugmire has set up a petition calling for the reopening of Isaac Hayward's paddling pool, which has fallen into disrepair. The pool was opened in memory of Isaac Hayward, a boy with cerebral palsy who tragically died aged 5 in 2001. It is owned by the Isle of Wight Council and was previously leased by the Waterside Community Trust. Started on Monday, the petition has so far gathered around 1,000 signatures. It says, "The Splash Park has long been a well-loved space for children, families, and tourists alike. It provides a safe, fun, and interactive place for children to play and learn, and it plays a key role in the health, happiness, and unity of our community. The park is currently in a state of disrepair and needs significant refurbishment. Without action, we risk losing a valuable community asset." Isaac's sister, Tracy, said the park was close to her heart. Fellow campaigner and former Ryde Town Councillor Lisa Maria Carter said, "Unfortunately, it has not been looked after in the way it should have been, and it could be open to a degree right now if it was looked after properly. I understand that the water works underneath are defunct, and there were other parts that could have been kept going. It's a crying shame that the community are losing a valuable asset. Every year you see posts on Facebook, people up in arms. When is a splash park opening?" Jen Hughes, a town councillor, said she is 100% behind the community and will continue to seek a resolution that results in the park's reopening. Councillor Michael Lilly, County Hall representative for Ryde, Apley and Emphill, said, "Local residents feel strongly I am continuing to raise this with Ryde Town Council and the Isle of Wight Council. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said, "We recognize the deep emotional significance of the Isaac Hayward paddling pool, created in memory of a much-loved little boy whose legacy has brought joy to so many children and families. We understand how important this space is, not only as a place for play and community gathering, but as a living tribute to Isaac's life. We want to be clear that there are no confirmed plans for the site. While some early conceptual ideas have been discussed, including alternative uses, nothing has been decided. We are very open to sitting down with Tracy and other interested members of the ride community to talk about the future of this area together."
100-year-old Ethel played her part in the war effort. A woman who helped the war effort by making barrage balloons has celebrated her 100th birthday. Ethel Irish Shaw, known affectionately as Ginge, was born on June the 16th, 1925, and has deep roots in Cowes, having attended Denmark Road School before starting work at just 14 years old. During the Second World War, Ethel contributed by making barrage balloons in Cowes and later worked at Saunders and Row as a riveter's holder-up. In 1946, Ethel joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, the WAF, and trained as a medical orderly. She and Leonard were both posted to the 27 Group headquarters in Gloucestershire, where they got to know each other before Leonard was posted to Singapore for 2 years. When Leonard returned, he married Ethel at Dewsbury Registry Office in West Yorkshire, and post-war they moved into their first home together in Yorkshire, welcoming their first daughter, Susan. They returned to the Isle of Wight in 1955, where he landed a job at J.S. White's and Cowes as an apprentice decorator, and celebrated the birth of their second daughter, Linda. Ethel continued her working life in the canteens at the Folly Works in Whippingham and at Fibre Resin in East Cowes. When Leonard retired and the children had grown up, Ethel and Leonard would regularly head for the continent in a motorcycle and a sidecar. They particularly enjoyed long winter birthdays in Spain. They shared a marriage that lasted 65 years. Though Leonard died in 2017, Ethel remains surrounded by her family of 2 daughters, 5 grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren, and 1 great-great-grandchild. A keen darts player, Ethel once represented both the Sloop Inn, Wootton Bridge, and the former British Hovercraft Corporation. Remarkably, Ethel continued to live independently in her own home in East Cowes until she was 99, a testament to her strength and spirit. A year ago she moved into the Kynance Care Home in East Cowes. To celebrate her 100th birthday, Ethel recently attended a buffet at Osborne Golf Club with 40 guests comprised of family and friends. Kynance Care Home also held a tea party complete with entertainment.
Warning of opportunist burglaries. Isle of Wight Police are urging residents and business owners to improve their security as rising temperatures increase the risk of opportunistic burglaries. With more households opening windows and doors to cool down, properties can become easy targets for criminals. Most burglaries are committed by opportunists, said PCSO Lisa. A criminal may pick a house that looks unoccupied, has left windows open, or a back gate, or has little security. She advised, look at your current level of security and identify areas of improvement to reduce the risk of being a victim. Officers are reminding islanders to ensure even small windows are securely shut and doors locked at all times, even when someone is at home. Consider CCTV or smart doorbells like Ring devices, which can aid in gathering evidence. Sensor lighting at the front and rear entrances is also recommended. Police urge residents to report suspicious activity, providing as much detail as possible.
A section on memories. The festival boss has seen it all. Organising a surprise nail appointment for Paul McCartney, convincing Amy Winehouse to sing with the Rolling Stones, and building Ronnie Wood's and Keith Richards a marquee with a pool table, which they never used. Isle of Wight Festival organiser John Giddings has seen it all over the years. Ahead of the 2025 event, he recalled some of the standout moments he's had with music legends, including David Bowie. In an interview with the Music Maps podcast, John revealed that Bob Dylan was sold on coming to the island in 1969, partly because of his love of literature. John said he looked up the Isle of Wight and it had the heritage of Alfred Lord Tennyson, Queen Victoria, Charles Dickens and all of that. Lewis Carroll, they all came down and hung out there. So it was all the intelligent people, and he was obsessed by literary people and whatever goes with it. John also reflected on David Bowie's Isle of Wight Festival performance, his last ever UK show. It was the night of a football championship, England versus France, in 2004. I stupidly had agreed to broadcast the first half on the screens before David came on. England were 1-up, which was fantastic, and when I brought David to the stage, England were 2-1 down. So he went on to complete silence, and if it hadn't been for someone of his calibre, I don't think we would have got away with it. But he was astounding. He played all of the hits. John also shared what it took to get the biggest rock band in the world, the Rolling Stones, to the festival. I paid an extra £100,000 to build the B stage so they could play 3 songs acoustically, and I had a marquee built backstage for Keith Richards and Ronnie Wood to have a game of pool before they went on, and they didn't use it. They walked straight past it. One of John's most unusual backstage requests came from Paul McCartney's promoter, Barry Marshall, who called him up and asked if he has anyone who does acrylic nails. John grabbed a yellow pages and found a lady in Cowes. He said she was sat in one of my offices with her little vanity case, and I thought, it must be for one of the backing singers, one of the girls, and he, Paul, turned up, and it was for him, because he strengthened his nails to play the acoustic guitar. He was incredible. He took her into the dressing room and he had dinner with her. I mean, these people, they're not just famous because they make great records and perform. They are nice people. Persuading Amy Winehouse to play with the Stones was another feat for John. He recalls, Amy Winehouse, Paoli Nutini. I thought it was a good idea for people to sing with them. So I asked Amy Winehouse and she said no. By Sunday I persuaded her, but it was touch and go. On the podcast, John also reveals his chance encounter with Bruce Springsteen, and that he knew it. There was a club in Soho, and I was in there some night, and we needed to smoke in the clubs then, and I didn't have a light. I went up to this bloke at the bar and said, "Have you got a light?" And he gave me a light, and he had a cap on, and I walked back, and my mate said, "What was he like?" I said, "Who?" They said, "Bruce." I asked, "Bruce Springsteen?" For a light I didn't even know.
Birthday honours for magistrate. A magistrate from Freshwater has been awarded an MBE. Charlotte Carter, Justice of Peace, is believed to be the only Isle of Wight resident to feature in the King's Birthday honours this year. She was awarded an MBE for services to the administration of justice on the Isle of Wight and in Hampshire, as well as a magistrate on the East Hampshire bench. Charlotte is also a member of the Independent Monitoring Board for HMP Isle of Wight. The King's Birthday Honours list recognizes the outstanding achievements of people across the United Kingdom. Anyone can nominate someone for an honour. You can do so online at government.gov.uk/honours. Memories. Humble chimneys, hidden splendour. Very often we fail to look up to the sky and the rooftops. Today, more than ever, it seems many of the younger generations seem to have their eyes glued to their mobile phones. If you do spare a thought to what is up near the skyline, there are not so many chimneys to be seen. Once there were a necessity on every house and on every scullery. Terraces of houses in 1900 would all be built with a scullery at the back, where the washing could be done in a large copper boiler, the water heated by fire beneath it. Coal fires were the norm, although there was often only one in each house, or perhaps a coke boiler to heat the hot water. Walk around any post-Second World War estate and you can see when houses started to be built without chimneys. Luckily on the island, we still have much of our Victorian housing stock. Chimney stacks were built of brick. These could be plain and simple and very decorative. The brick makers, Pragnell of Newtown Creek, created some beautiful barley twist design with additional decoration at the top and bottom. Some can be seen at Newtown, and the special bricks to make the chimneys were also delivered by sea to Yarmouth. Look up above the White Link ticket office for excellent examples. The chimney stacks built of bricks at Barton Manor were carefully restored, matching the originals. Prince Albert was one of the first people to appreciate conservation of an old building. He copied the same chimney style when designing the Barton Lodges, built in the late 1840s. The simple chimney stack still involved some decoration, sometimes using different colored bricks. Go past to the 1700s and you may notice all houses with a central brick chimney. The chimney would serve perhaps 2 downstairs rooms, at least one with a bread oven in the ingle nook fireplace. Bricks were expensive, but fireproof, unlike the old wattle and daub walls. This was improved development from the old whole house, where in medieval times the smoke from the central open hearth was supposed to find its own way out of the tiles or thatch. In such old houses, the roof timbers are found to be smoke blackened, as not all the smoke escape. Chimney pots came in all shapes and sizes. What is amazing is that despite the distance from the ground, they were often decorated. Only the birds could be able to read any inscriptions once cemented in place. Coleman's brickyard at Upton Cross Ride was advertising its potteryware in the 1850s. So take a second look at the chimneys. As with oil, gas and air, or ground source heat pumps, chimneys are a thing of the past.
Fighting for the island to be seen and heard. Having become aware of the sensitivity from some islanders, I recently wrote to the Minister, Jim Mahoney, about the assumed name for the devolutions deal being worked up in government and across our region in 3 other local authorities. Government wants to call it Hampshire and the Solent area, which encompasses Portsmouth, Southampton, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Obviously there is no mention on the island in that description, on Portsmouth and Southampton for that matter, so I have written asking that the words Isle of Wight are added to the devolution deal we are working on. It may seem a small point in the overall scheme of things, but it is important to islanders that we continue to recognise and be recognised as an island and uniquely different to the mainland. That has been our stance over many, many years and has formed a large part of our approach to government for fairer funding for the island. So let us see how government responds to our request to specifically name the island in any future devolution arrangements and any combined authority. Work continues on a weekly basis to get to a position on local government reorganisation that can be submitted by the due date in September 2025. As many already know, we have secured the full support of Hampshire, Portsmouth and Southampton, together with all of the district and borough councils, to put forward the case for the island to remain as the current unitary authority, as an exemption to the criteria Government have allocated to reorganisation for all areas of the country being a unitary authority. It is a big task, and I am very mindful that any actions that the Council make or are subjected to could affect very seriously our ability to remain in a stand-alone authority. Recent events within the Council publish widely where certain councillors are challenging the most senior Council officers in their decisions, and management are risking the claims we are making that we can manage the island alone through the unitary council we already have, risking the very existence of the Isle of Wight Council. It is not a given that government will grant us an exception to their rules on reorganisation, and I am fearful that this is the wrong moment for the island to be regarded by the government as a problematic council. Let us hope these councillors involved are able to understand the strategic positions for our council and refrain from further disruption to the business of council being carried out for all our sakes.
My view. Wonderful year of sailing for a whole island to enjoy. It was great to see the pictures of the Round the Island race in last week's county press. This is a great event which the whole island enjoys, as well as those on the 850 boats taking part in this year. In fact, the race was originally scheduled to take place this weekend. Because the tides are critical to the timing of the race, each year the proposed dates are given to the Council 3 years in advance. They are also settled with all the sailing clubs around the island, the King's Harbour Master in Portsmouth, ABP in Southampton, and all the emergency services who are on standby throughout the day. So it came as a considerable surprise earlier in the year that the organizers of the Isle of Wight Festival suddenly announced that they wanted the same date. What was even more of a surprise was that the council had agreed to that sudden change of plan, knowing that it would clash with the race, that it would not be possible to hold both events on the same weekend. As a result, the race had to be moved to the date weeks earlier. The port authorities had to rewarn shipping to avoid the new date, and police, ambulance, RNLI, and Coast Guard shifts had all to be amended. Let's hope this does not happen again. The weather forecast for this year's race looked challenging right up to the last minute. Even on the Friday night, skippers were warned that there might be winds gusting up to the high 30s and 3-meter waves by the time they got to St. Catherine Point. And as always, the decision of any boat to take part was the skippers alone. About 100 boats did not take part as a result. Next day, visiting St. Catherine to check on progress, the sea was flat calm, and spinakers were going up in a brisk but controllable breeze. You never know what you're going to get these days. Next year's race will be on the 11th of July. Next year is also the 200th anniversary of Cowes Week, and we hope to celebrate with 200 days of sailing activities in the Solent of Cowes. Indeed, a new entity called Cowes 200 has been formed, led by the Royal Yacht Squadron and involving all the Cowes Club and the town councils on both sides of the river in a joint enterprise to boost the town's reputation as a premier yachting location. For the bicentenary regatta, we hope to attract more boats and crews and put on a series of spectacular events on the water and ashore. It should be 7 days of world-class regatta racing and follow through in a sequence of events, including the Round the Island race, Classics Week, and several national championships. Cowes Harbour Commission intend to start work shortly on a new marina in the river of East Cowes and will be providing an enhanced water taxi service to all the pontoons of the river, so we look forward to great things in 2026. Both East Cowes and Cowes should feel the benefit of the enhanced sailing and visitor numbers. And now what's on? The Phoenix Choir final choir concert. The Phoenix Choir farewell concert will be held in Newport Minster on the afternoon of the 5th of July, a Saturday, commencing at 2:30. Newport Minster, St. Thomas Square in Newport.
The Theatre in the Great Outdoors. An outdoor Shakespearean comedy is set to be performed on the island. The Lord Chamberlain's Men's Theatre Company will bring the 12th night to the Isle of Wight Steam Railway on July the 16th at 7 p.m. The audience can expect a show featuring romantic confusion, mistaken identity and practical jokes, all performed by an all-male cast in Elizabethan costumes. The company, boasting a history linked to Shakespeare's original troupe, promises an authentic experience with music and dancing from the era. Attendees are encouraged to bring a chair and enjoy the open-air performance. Tickets are priced at £18 for adults and £10 for children, with an additional booking fee. For those wanting to enhance their experience, a combined ticket offering a steam train ride before the show is available at £34 for adults and £26 for children, again with an additional booking fee. And tickets are available at Quay Arts, that's QUAYARTS.org, or by calling 01983 822 490.
And finally, the letters section. Losing Ireland's unique identity. A letter from Keith Hook of Wootton Bridge. I am writing to protest at the significant withdrawal of funding from the Mountbatten Hospice on the island. This will hit the valuable service our hospice provides at a difficult time in people's lives, on top of the recent increase in national insurance introduced by this Labour government. To my mind, this seems to be linked to the desire to bundle the Isle of Wight Council in with Hampshire under the heading of devolution. Councillor Jordan, in a statement after being re-elected as leader of the council, said that he was ready to finish the job he has started. I understand that a new name of the authority could be Hampshire and Solent. If this plan goes ahead, I expect the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, the body responsible for the cut in funding to the hospice, to be renamed Hampshire and Solent Integrated Care Board. The island loses its unique identity. Missing a trick at Newport Harbour. A letter from Richard Ferraro of Bonchurch. I have sympathy with Ben Hoofton. He is concerned about inappropriate greenfield housing development on the Isle of Wight and the loss of natural beauty. Concerning central government's drive for new built housing, Isle of Wight must be treated as a special case with reduced quantity. Physical separation from the mainland and lack of national investment have direct impacts on the availability of employment here. There is a naturally occurring restriction on total population.
Another story about the cockerels were quieter than mice, by Dr. Guy Moore from Lake. The story of the cockerels waking people up on the 13th of June reminded me of when I stayed on a farm in Abbotskewell in Devon. The accommodation was in a barn above a basement with no windows where the cockerels lived. In the evening the farmers herded them in and closed the door. We noticed the keyhole was blocked. Yes, he said, if the slightest light gets in, you'll know it all right when the dawn arrives. They were quieter than all the mice until the farmer opened the door at breakfast time.
And now a poem from Chrissy Saunders of Ryde. B is for biosphere. We are a biosphere. What? Our island home? Yes, a virtual scientific dome. It's all here. Nature's revelation, nature's glorification. Don't forget to nurture it Water it, protect it. Keep it clean, keep it green. It's more than it may seem. Don't lose that dream.
And the last letter, Festival Not Good for Everyone, by Andy Redhead, MD of Redhead and Roberts. I am sure I am not the only business owner with a business based in Newport who dreads the Isle of Wight Festival ramp-up week and the festival weekend itself, simply because of the unbelievable disruption it causes to my business. We are based near St Mary's Hospital, and as soon as the one-way system on Fairley Road is activated, we can't get in or out of the industrial estate where we are. And with our fleet of trucks, we lose so many hours sitting in traffic that we end up closing the business for several days. Mr Giddings states every year just how much the festival benefits the island. I beg to strongly differ, as do my staff, who lose several days' pay through no fault of their own. Last year we calculated that our vehicles spent in excess of 37 hours stuck in festival traffic. Should I send Mr Giddings' festival company an invoice for lost productivity each year? I am not anti-festival in any way whatsoever, but who in the various positions of authority have granted the relevant licences to allow the festival to grow to the size it now is, in the location that it is? The festival needs to be relocated to a venue away from the county town, so festival goers can have a wonderful and safe time, while the included can continue to trade and not suffer this forced disruption. We have enough disruption for the remainder of the year with the continuous roadworks on our congested road network. I have a small van booked with Red Funnel this week, and they have charged me £124 to go one way. Can someone please explain to me how that cost can be justified? I accept that everyone has to make profit, but that cost, in my opinion, is criminal. This isn't profit, it is profiteering. My season ticket for the Red Jet went up from around £2,800 last year to £3,562 this year for the same unreliable, barely surviving but critical transport link. To everyone going to the festival this year, I hope you have a wonderful time. To Mr Giddings and his management team, the Isle of Wight Council, the police, the fire service and all the other official bodies involved in the licensing of the festival, it is time to get together and discuss where you relocate the festival to. Finally, to Red Funnel, you need to have a serious rethink and business plan to look after your ripped-off customers who have no choice but to use your service. So that is the end for this week, and we will both say goodbye.
Goodbye.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the Scaffolding News follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
We're now in the communal garden, surrounded by the flats. There's 3 patio flats behind me, which have their own garden space.
That's my flat. I have lots of plants actually.
Because it's a central...
And that only was attracted me because they convinced me to move in. They will give me a flat where I can have my lovely plants. I've got some mint, lavender and rosemary and thyme. I'm an Indian. I love Indian cooking, so I do, yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure it will lay out.
Do you want an arm to the sofa?
Yeah, thanks.
Just give us my water thing.
Pocklington Lodge is the last of a group of housing complexes providing accommodation specifically for blind and partially sighted people. It was the result of a bequest by benefactor Sir Thomas Pocklington. And despite the reassurances of the administrators of the Thomas Pocklington Trust, or TPT. The fear of having to move by some of the residents is very real and hardly surprising. In 2013, Pocklington House, geared to the needs of around 20 very elderly residents, closed because it was judged to need too much refurbishment. Pocklington Court closed in 2016 because it was argued that it no longer made economic sense as accommodation for working blind people. And now, just a few months ago, tenants of Pocklington Lodge, where we are near Shepherd's Bush, were invited to a consultation based on the premise that in changing times, running supported housing was no longer an appropriate use of the Trust's funds and philosophy. Well, Andrew Hodgson is chairman of the Tenants Association here. Now, Andrew, you all got letters back in November. In a nutshell, what did they say?
They gave us 4 options, ranging from keeping the status quo with reduced services, changing the ownership and management, and changing the status altogether.
But that all indicated change of one sort or another, but it was meant to be a consultation, wasn't it?
Yes, it was meant to be a consultation, but in essence it hasn't been. They've ended up just coming forward with one option. They are now saying that they want to sell the building to what they say would be a suitable provider, but we have got doubts about that.
And what are your fears?
Our fears are that they won't be able to find a suitable buyer, and we still feel that they might end up selling the site to a property developer because it's a very desirable site.
And where would that leave you, do you think?
That would leave us basically homeless, reliant on Pocklington or the council finding us somewhere else to live.
Let me ask the rest of you what you think about this. Jessica, we're in your flat. What do you think about this?
As blind and partially sighted people, we really need stable routes, access to good transport and employment. The problem with selling this building on is that we can no longer guarantee that this building will remain for visually impaired people with a subsidy for our rents, which puts all our homes at risk.
What would you feel about having to move?
I'd be concerned. Before I came here, I actually was preparing to move in with my parents temporarily because I couldn't find accommodation. I was trying to get a studio flat that I could afford, which is challenging in London for me and my guide dog, because living with strangers is hard when you have a guide dog. But also a lot of landlords, the moment I mentioned I had a guide dog, were just not acknowledging me anymore.
Was moving in with your parents a good option or the last option?
It was definitely a last resort. My parents don't live somewhere with much public transport, so when I lived with them I was completely reliant on them driving me about, driving me to and from work. When I live here I function independently, I can get to and from my office on my own. Really, I don't have any sort of independent life when I live with my parents.
Ben Lawrence, what about you?
Well, I've lived here 25 years in a studio flat. It's on the whole been a good place to live. On the whole, I found TPT a reasonable landlord, but over the last, let's say, decade or so, it seems they've been gradually pulling the plug on the idea that they wish to or have any responsibility to provide accommodation. As you mentioned, they've got rid of other buildings, and there was a sense of a sword dangling over our building, which has been ongoing stress for me. And, you know, we get messages sent to us saying, for example, the strategy of the charity has changed. And I kind of think it almost seems so detached, as if the strategy is something separate from the decisions that are being made on high. And I've said this before, you know, in meetings with tenants, that I think that the TPT team, as they are, should see themselves as custodians of the ethos of the charity. And I'm tempted to think they're acting like owners of it.
Let me move to the fourth person, Devaki Siva Subramanian. Now, you've been through this before. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, as you rightly said, I moved from Pocklington Court As Ben said, they keep changing their strategies and it's so hard to get my head around it. But one thing what I can assure is it's happening the same way. So I am really terrified and so much mentally disturbed. To be honest with you, in the first place, I never wanted to move into Pocklington Lodge because I did fear they are not stable on what they provide, and they were reassuring me this place is certainly not going to be closing in the next 20 years at least, because it is providing accommodation for people who are at work and you don't have to worry about it.
How do you feel about lightning sort of striking twice?
It's terrible.
I want to go back to Andrew because, you know, in spite of all this, Andrew, I think you've been assured that if they sell, they won't sell to a developer, as many of you fear. They will only sell to someone who can take on the role of support for the tenants, and they've said to you in correspondence, I know, who will do it better than they're doing it now. What do you say to that?
Well, it's the same problem that Deviki just mentioned, really, that we feel what is the validity of what they're saying? Can it be guaranteed? They haven't got a good track record. So we're quite wary of what they're saying.
But they have said, like I press you on this, they've said we're definitely not going to sell it to a developer.
That is what they've said in writing, yes.
But you don't believe that?
I've got my doubts, yes.
Right. Others of you, what do you feel? Jess?
So first of all, the other properties they have sold, they are no longer housing for the blind and partially sighted. And they have discussed with us removing this status as a functional property. So even if they don't sell to a developer, we could still lose the fact that this is specifically housing for people with a visual impairment. The second issue is, whoever they sell to, we have no protection on our rents, no more than the average tenant.
Ben, on this?
Yeah, I echo what my fellow tenants have said. TPT, they speak a lot about equity in society, wanting to promote the well-being of people with a visual impairment, etc. And I suspect they do some good work. But this is putting our lives backwards and our lives further from said equity.
I want to put this to all of you in a way. Isn't the idea of supported housing for blind people a bit old-fashioned?
I do get the idea that when we hear the phrase a home for the blind, it evokes sort of 1950s institutions. Yeah, that's the word. This place isn't that. It's just a block of flats that happen to have tenants with a sight problem.
To live here, you have to be working, able to self-support and have limited to no care needs. It's not so much about being segregated from society. Living here gives us access to the community. Pocklington talk a lot about how they want to improve access to employment in the community, but the way I do that and the way we all live independently is because we live here. If this ceased to exist, there isn't another place in London I could suddenly go to give me that.
Good afternoon, Thomas Pocklington Charles.
Hello, it's Peter White. I've come to interview Charles Cahoon.
Oh, please come in. We're on the phone.
Well, a few miles east on the Piccadilly line are the headquarters of the Thomas Pocklington Trust. Charles Cahoon has been its CEO since 2018. Charles, you've been managing properties like this for well over 50 years, Thomas Pocklington. Who better to run them? Why the need for a change?
You're absolutely right that we have been in housing for a long time, but the shape of the organisation has changed dramatically over the last 15 years. So when you started following this story, we employed about 150 people in housing. Today we employ 3. So the expertise is no longer within the organisation.
But why has it changed?
It was a decision taken before I arrived, but I'm not ducking out of it in terms of that I can understand the sense of it. If you look back at our records, you could see that there were 150 people looking after around 250 people in housing. Today, we have 75 people, of whom, incidentally, 46 are blind or partially sighted, supporting about 1,000 people.
But Charles, that's presumably a choice you've taken over the years. In fact, you said it was. Thomas Pocklington Trust said they wanted to get out of housing. They didn't put it that brutally, but that's what it meant.
Well, that's correct. As I say, it's before my time, so I can't tell you in detail what the arguments were. But yes, it was a deliberate, conscious decision, I am sure, by the trustees and the senior leadership team at the time.
That doesn't explain really why you want to get out of the business entirely. And as far as housing is concerned, some tenants believe you just want to sell to the highest bidder, maybe a developer. I mean, it's a very attractive area around there.
It is a very attractive area, and I should say that the decision, which was a difficult decision taken by the board, the senior leadership team, ultimately it's the board's decision, but the senior leadership team were very much involved in the debate and discussion. We were all unanimous in that, firstly, we don't have the expertise in-house to manage the site, but secondly, the tenants' future homes are very important to us. So we have absolutely committed not to sell it to a developer for the highest price. We have absolutely committed to making sure that the tenants can remain in their homes, and the affordability of rents going forward is also very important.
So why do you think the tenants are so worried if that's the case?
I think it's very natural for people in terms of change to be worried, particularly involving people's homes. I think it's also worth pointing out that there's well over 1,000 housing association with 3 million units of social housing which they own, and they regularly transfer ownership between themselves, whether they merge or buy or sell units to each other. That doesn't impact on the residents themselves. But I think it's also important to note that we have given them as much support as we can. I believe that we will come up with an arrangement which will be more suitable for them long term.
But it's not surprising to me that they're worried, really. I mean, I just want to play you a couple of things which have been said to us over the years on the In Touch programme by senior members of the Trust.
Pocklington Trust doesn't want to get out of the housing issue or out of working on housing.
So is Pocklington Lodge safe?
Yes.
Can you tell them how long it's safe for?
Well, we're aiming to put together a 20 to 25 year plan for the building.
So this isn't about balancing the books?
We have an endowment somewhere in the north region of £150 million. We don't have financial problems.
We have given repeated assurances in this consultation phase that we have no plans to change how Pocklington Lodge is owned. It will still be owned by the Thomas Pocklington Trust. It will still be managed on behalf of the Pocklington Trust, and it will still be let and used for visually impaired people.
So, Charles, lots of reassurance, especially for residents of Pocklington Lodge, by Keith Valentine, who was then Deputy CEO in 2016, then Simon Curtis, who was at the time in charge of your property portfolio. But, you do want to get out of housing.
Well, Peter, things move on. So
you had a 25-year plan, though.
Well, if I can, let me come back to that. In terms of both those statements, they were true at the time. The debate and discussion decision to sell Pocklington Lodge was taken a year ago. I wouldn't agree that an organisation needs to stick to a 20-25-year plan forever.
You've already said, and in that letter we quoted, that the Trust now wants to do other things which will be of more help to more people. Just explain what you mean by that.
Well, there are really 5 things that we concentrate on. So first of all is employment. We support around about, in the last 3 years, around about 1,000 people in terms of CV writing and things like that. The second one is interns. We now have an internship programme we do in collaboration with RNIB, which has about 30 interns a year in about 25 different organisations within and outside the sector. The third thing is we have sight loss councils. These are groups that lobby locally to improve accessibility, and these are led by blind and partially sighted people. The fourth area is education, and they've supported around 900 students through the Student Support Service. And then fifthly, there's also the grant programme. And since you started covering this story, we have awarded just under £20 million in non-research grants.
You're a very rich organisation, Charles. I mean, the resources of somewhere in the region of £165 million. You could have done all those things and still stayed in housing, or at least keep open a place where people have lived for 40 years, some of them, and have spent the last few years worrying that they were going to be turfed out.
The fact that we're looking to sell the building does not mean that anyone will be turfed out. In fact, that is one of the absolute conditions that we have decided as an organisation is not going to happen. The second point I want to turn to is you're saying that we're a rich organisation. We are fortunate to have a large endowment, but that is the permanent endowment. That is not the amount we have to spend every year, sadly. Our annual budget is just under £6 million a year. We have spent more than we've earned for the last 10 years. So it's not correct to say that we're just sitting on, I know you didn't say this, but it's not correct for those who do say we're just sitting on it. But I don't agree that we could do both. But the real point is not financial, it's expertise. As I mentioned, we've got experts in employment, education, and in advocacy, and that's where our expertise is now.
But in this particular case, aren't you going to find it quite hard to find the kind of buyer you say you want to sell to? You know, where are these groups offering support to blind people with the money to buy Pocklington Lodge, complete with residents?
Well, in terms of the support provided to them is mainly by Hammersmith and Fulham, almost entirely. So there is the social services from Hammersmith and Fulham, and then there's a contract which Hammersmith and Fulham provide a service to the block. So in fact, we have for the last 10 years, and I believe actually this was covered on one of your first programmes, was actually Pocklington Lodge has moved to a model of independent living some time ago.
But what's going to happen if you can't sell this? It still seems unlikely you'll find the kind of buyer that you're looking for.
Well, I'm not sure, Peter, on what evidence you have to say that it's unlikely someone will buy it. The advice we have got...
Well, I'm trying to think of the kind of organisation that would.
Housing associations, for example, are regularly buying social housing.
Let's stick with that, though, because those organisations, are you giving an absolute guarantee to the people who are in Pocklington Lodge at the moment that they won't have to move?
That's entirely correct. In fact, more than that, in that their rents will remain affordable as well. So they won't have to move because of, a developer or anything like that, and that the rents will remain affordable.
But how long is this going to take, and how much interest are you actually getting in the site?
In an example of how we are consistent as an organisation, and as you've earlier pointed out, we are not under short-term financial pressure. This is about our expertise having changed, not about short-term financial measures. So we're in no hurry, so there is no time limit, there's no deadline on getting the right deal. In terms of interest, I haven't spoken to any parties, we deliberately haven't done that so far. We're about to undertake that stage because we wanted to have a consultation where we got the tenant's view without some secret deal being done in the background.
So part of staying will be part of the deal.
Absolutely right.
Charles Cahoon, thank you very much indeed.
Scaffolding and skips news for week commencing the 20th of June. Newport area, Guildhall, Quayside, Quay Street, Café Isola, St James Street, 78 Pyle Street, Age UK, 114A Pyle Street.
The Ride area, Aspire, 35 to 36 High Street, 2 Union Street, Charcoal Grill, 65A Union Street, Michelangelo's, 30 St Thomas Street, 131 High Street, Isaclue, Asiatics Beauty, 120 High Street. Ride area skips, The Lodge, 1 Ferry Road Sea View.
Ventnor area, Tintos, 24 Pier Street, 1 Pier View Esplanade, 28 South Street, 21 Church Street.
The Sundown area, 3 Fort Street, 77 High Street, Fields, 47 to 49 High Street, 44 Beachfields Road, Pier Street, side of building.
Cowes area, The Anchor Inn, 1 to 3 High Street, Lloyds Bank, 71 High Street.